With all the trouble we got going on right now, you really need to look for a safe harbor. And we're going to show you one here in a second, and a safe harbor that will grow, not just maintain. Anyway, I'm Dave Hodges. This is the Common Sense Show. We are the show that's freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. We defend God, family, country, and have a special place in our heart for the oppressed. And we take positive action to protect the oppressed. We're in the Ephesians 5:11 business, and please look that up. You'll come to find out what that means. And I'm just trying to encourage people to get into their Bible. Anyway, I interviewed Pastor Shay Hun. He is from South Korea originally, grew up mostly in America, had kind of a troubled background. And we're going to play that part for you because I'm going to break up my interview with him into several parts. And one of the parts I'm going to play after the intro is his plan to rescue California from the crazy liberals. And it's a good one. It's the best one out there. Oh, back up. Paul Preston's New California idea is a darn good one, too. But I think you're going to really enjoy this part. This is an amazing man. He has churches in 71 countries. So you're talking to a man of the cloth who has great influence. I'm going to play that interview for you right here. But first, let me tell you this. I'm lucky to represent Iron Hawk Financial because we've had people go through their program. They're making money hand over fist because of what they've done. It's tax-free under IRS code 7702. And then they went on to become agents. It's really gratifying to me. And this is what I want for a lot of people because with the times we're going through, you need to be healthy and whole financially. And this will do the job. The sacred cows in our society, the elite do this. This will never go down. Trust me. In fact, uh, Iron Hawk's never lost a dime of client money, ever, ever. To find out if it's right for you, and they'll tell you right away, all you got to do is go to dhawk.com, dhawk.com, put in your contact information. They'll be in touch with you and they'll tell you right away, we can help you, or maybe you want to look at something else. You're not going to get any pressure. And this is, are you ready? Recession proof. dhawk.com. We're going to really have a good time bringing this to you. I so enjoy this pastor. So I'm going to play the intro and then we're going to go ahead and go to a little bit about American history and then blend it into saving California from the crazy liberals. And this is just an amazing, amazing man. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Common Sense Show. My name is Dave Hodges. I'm the host, and we're the show freeing America one enslaved mind at a time, and hopefully one enslaved soul at a time. And we serve God, family, country, and we have a special place in our heart for the oppressed. We're coming to you live from the Noble Gold Studios, and we're really, really happy about that. Noble Gold gives you a chance to change your retirement that could be in trouble if it's associated with the bank because they can take it under Dodd-Frank 2010 and they'll put it under your control, back it with precious metals. It's a no-brainer. Just have a discussion with them. Just see if it's the best thing for you. And by the way, I've been a customer for over 9 years. Call 877-646-5347, 877-646-5347. We're privileged and honored to have a man of God on our show. He just prayed for the show before we went on. I just want to give him credit for that. I couldn't appreciate that more. And his name is Pastor Shay On, and he ran for governor. He's working to insulate and prepare the youth. And we're going to talk about Newsom, and we're going to talk about what we as adults need to be doing for our young people. Shay, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you on.
It's an
And
honor for me, Dave. Thank you for having me on.
it's really, really a privilege. And I'm a man of faith too, so I appreciate what you're doing. Let's start a little bit about your background and what your ministry looks like so people can become more familiar with that.
Well, thank you. I was born in South Korea, immigrated with my mother, my sister. My dad was already in the United States in 1958, but we had visa problems, so we came in 1960. So I was separated from my dad for 3 years. Again, not intentionally, it was just circumstantial.
Mhm.
And we began to live the American dream. But Unfortunately, I came at a time where the 60s was very, very volatile. The whole hippie drug culture came in. Beatles came on Ed Sullivan in 63 or 64, I forget. And before I knew it, even though my dad was a pastor, Southern Baptist pastor, I started hanging out with the wrong group. And before I knew it, when I'm 15, I'm smoking marijuana. And by the time I'm 17, I'm a hard drug user and a pusher, totally, totally out of control. And then I committed what's called the unpardonable sin for an Asian immigrant, because the whole purpose of immigrating to the United States is to get a good education and to live the American dream. And that was built into me by my parents, but I dropped out of high school. I was so messed up on drugs and I was so rebellious. And so I hitchhiked around the country again with my long hair, my hippie look, and I was just absolutely lost. I got into Eastern religion, got into Zen Buddhism. I started to chant because the Beatles, of course, were getting into Eastern religion as well at that time, and they were like my band, my favorite band, the Beatles, and one thing led to another. But I started to drop acid, LSD, and peyote, mescaline, to go on these spiritual journeys. And but after like a year of searching, I was so frustrated. I just sat in this bed by myself in this room, my friend's house. I started to do my Zen chant, but I was so bored. I got nothing out of it, and I cried out to God. And this is what I said audibly, out loud. No one was in the room. I just said, God, I don't even know if you exist, but if you do exist, if what my parents told me is true, that Jesus died for my sins, he rose again. I heard the gospel, but I never believed. But if this is true, and there is a heaven and a hell, well, I don't want to go to hell. I want to have eternal life. And so, what little information I had, I said, God, prove yourself. Show me. So I was not a atheist. I was more of an agnostic. I just didn't know if this was true or not. Now, I wasn't expecting anything right there. And by the way, I was not on drugs. I was just doing my Zen chant, and I cried out, and all of a sudden the presence of God came all over me. And I felt so much love, so much peace. I just began to weep, and it shocked me. I said, "Oh my goodness, my parents were correct all this time. That's Jesus." So I had a revelation of Jesus, and I fell in love with Jesus. And within 2 weeks, I was completely off of drugs, and I got back into school, and felt a call to ministry a year later. And so I went to University of Maryland, majored in Greek and history because it was a secular school that was close by that we could afford. My parents had pay for my college education. But my second year, I got a scholarship from a family that their son, who was going to go to seminary, died in a car accident. So they wanted to give this scholarship to a person who was called into ministry. And so I got a full ride my sophomore, junior, and senior year at University of Maryland. And then God called me to move to California in 1984. And I had promised my dad I'll go to seminary. So I went to Fuller Seminary, got my master's. I got my doctorate there. I spent 8 years in seminary because I was married. I had kids. And now I have four adult children. All of them are married, and 10 grandchildren. But most importantly, I've been married 47 years, and how God changed my life is just a miracle. And I give him all the praise.
Kind of reminds me of Paul in the Bible, right? Persecuted Christians and then defended Christians, became a strong Christian and contributed so much to the New Testament. And Shayon has had similar experience. Now, I want to jump forward to where he talks a little bit about history and our founding fathers and their Christian beliefs, but then he gets into this is what we got to do to save California. And California is so hopelessly corrupt. I mean, there's Shayon, there's a few good people there. There's certainly Paul Preston and the New California movement that we should all support and be proud of. But I want to play what he had to say about saving, um, yeah, about saving really this whole situation involving um, California. And we need them back on our side. We really do. going to jump forward to where he talks a little bit about the founding fathers and then gets into the noble plan to save corrupt California.
And so it sets this stage. And so was the Great Awakening of 1738 in America, and along with others who were part of the Great Awakening, like Jonathan Edwards, for example, in Northampton, Massachusetts, that really brought about the independence of our nation. And thank God that our founders were Christian and worldview. I'm not
You
saying
know,
that,
but I've
yeah,
heard this though too, and I want to get your reaction to this.
yeah,
Okay, the Puritans come 150 years or so before a lot of the founding father families that came.
right.
And they were Christian, escaping religious persecution and all that we know. But also coming with them were people, they called it the New World because they wanted to make it Satan's New World Order. Are you aware of that?
Well, you also have the devil, of course, and you have the Salem witch trials. You have people who are
Yes.
trying to thwart the purposes of God. But I think it's very interesting. God and His sovereignty. Just think about the Spaniards in 1492 with Columbus. If they had colonized, if they had found gold, but they found nothing, they left. But if they had, then we would be like Latin America, a Catholic continent, but it was evangelicals from the Protestant Reformation, the Puritans and the Pilgrims who came. The Puritans were called Puritans because they wanted to bring reform even to the church in England. And the Pilgrims were separatists. They said, there's no hope for the church in England. We're going to start our own movement. And you have the Baptists coming forth as a result of that. For example, even the Danbury Baptists, by time Jefferson is president in 1801, they wrote a letter to President Jefferson saying that if he was going to, as a Diaz, persecute them in Connecticut. They were based in Connecticut. And he wrote a letter and said, absolutely not. There's a wall of separation between the church and the state. The state would not interfere. But they've taken that letter, the demonic secular humanists have taken that and basically started the narrative of separation of church and state. It had nothing to do with the church not being involved.
No, it
Of
didn't.
course.
In fact, they like to say it's freedom from religion, and actually it's supposed to be freedom of religion.
Exactly. Absolutely. The state would not interfere with a free exercise thereof. That's right there in the Constitution. And so, yeah. So anyway, this is something that has been very frustrating as a pastor because we have more evangelicals in California than any other state except for Texas. We have 12 million,
Wow.
but 6 million aren't even registered to vote. And the 6 million that are registered, 3 million won't vote. And so it's a
And he left out the obvious thing too. And we talked about this in a different part of the interview with regard to some of the voter impropriety issues that President Trump talked about in his primetime speech last week. But when we get down to it, he's exactly right. We defeat ourselves in the beginning when we sit on our hands. We as Christians need to stand up for what's right, right? We need to lead people to the light, and then we need to call attention to those people operating into the dark. Call them out for their evil deeds. Their sins will find them out. And we absolutely need to be doing that. And I'm glad to hear him point out the fact that a lot of Christians are just apathetic. It's amazing to me because if we lose the Constitution, you might lose the ability to worship freely in this country. You want to end up being like the Soviets. And by the way, they got around that by meeting in basements and so forth and hope there wasn't an informant. But what's today, you got all these devices spying on you. You might not get away with that. So I think we ought to get politically active. You people in California are Christians. You go, oh, it doesn't matter if we vote. Well, you're actually condemning ourselves to, I believe, future persecution. We need to be proactive. Back to Pastor On.
it's to me, it is such a tragedy of epic proportion because think about it. If Christians, because you're saying that as a Christian we should vote for if we did what your strategy is, we could win every election with a righteous, godly person in office. People who are godly would run knowing that they would have the churches back.
Yes.
Because people like myself, know that it's going to be a long shot if I run because the church is not activated. I try to activate them. That's why I'm now going after new believers. We're doing several things. First of all, they went to my website, for example, che4california.com, which is my website for my, it's still up.
That's
They would see
CHE.
my strategy was mobilizing 1 million prayer warriors. And the word million is not literal, but an army of prayer warriors to pray for revival and reformation of California. But these are prayer warriors who are activists to get new people registered to vote. And then I target young people to vote. And so what we did was because my biggest burden as I've been doing these Republican town council meetings, they're all my age or older. They're boomers. You don't see any young people in the Republican Party. And I said, oh my goodness, unless we reach the next generation, it's over. Already, California votes 80% left. So majority now the technical numbers are 75% are registered Democrats and independents, and 25% are registered Republican. So even just by if everyone showed up for their party, we would lose every election, 75 to 25. But 80%, that means some of the Republicans vote left. 80% vote left. And that's why we've had 20 years of a Democratic left government, and the odds are, even though we thank God that we have one Republican, Steve Hilton, running, but historically, when everyone shows up for the final election in November, because we have a runoff now, we have two people running, that if everyone shows up that are progressive, we don't even have a chance. So it's been very, very daunting. So what we have to do is we have to create a new wineskin of new voters. And so what we did was we had a stadium event at the LA Coliseum right on USC campus, and we gathered 33,000, was the largest youth gathering in the history of California, 33,000. And this is all part of our campaign strategy. And we had
Can I point out the obvious here for a moment? Charlie had good numbers, and he reached the young and was a master at this. Here you have Pastor On, who reached 33,000. This is Charlie's kind of work. See, TPUSA is no longer doing Charlie's work. They say they're preserving his legacy, and they've got 180 away from this. America First. You ever heard of that, TPUSA? Yeah, exactly. And so Shay is saying here that we've reached 33,000. What amazing work this is. And I said when Charlie died, we needed people to step up and carry the torch, and they're not inside TPUSA right now. There are people like this.
them register to vote. We had tables all around the stadium for them to register to vote based on which county they're from. So it had to be organized. It wasn't just pass out a paper and just register. You have to get them registered in LA County, Orange County, or Riverside County, etc. And so we had the counties represented. But what we did was we preached the gospel to them first because we want to get them saved. And we had an evangelist named Nathan Morris, and thousands gave their hearts to Jesus Christ. And so that's what I'm doing now. Now I am, even though I'm not officially running, obviously I didn't win, I didn't make the primary, but I am now, I feel like I have a mandate to plant 300 churches, new churches in California with a biblical worldview, because this is what I know how to do. We planted churches around the world. We have around 140 churches in our network in California already.
That's incredible. 140 churches in California speaking the word of God. And he's recruiting all these young people to this. This is Charlie Kirk's work. This is fantastic. And we need to get behind this. I'm going to have him back on. We'll talk about that. But we're going to actually break this interview up into clips that are timely and topical that you can relate to. But there are people who are doing good work. And you're not hearing march in the streets and get violent and do the things the left does, like attack police officers doing their job, right? This guy is just saying word of God, and then we're going to vote accordingly. Admonition to you Christians in California or anywhere across the country, register to vote and get out and vote and do it now. Seriously, get to work. Now, Shay, can you I'm almost speechless here about how this man could pull this off. 300 churches is the goal, new churches, 300 new churches. This would transform California. And when you add to that to the good work that Paul Preston is doing at New California, we can turn California around. And if we do, then we'll never have anyone elected in that state from a godless party. And I'm sorry to be so blunt, but Democrats, you kicked God out of your party platform years ago. And I've reached a point, and I said this to him in another part of this interview. I told Shay, I'm to the point I'm not going to vote for someone unless I believe they're a committed Christian. And I could make mistakes, but that's going to be my criteria. And if neither candidate is a Christian to what I think is a good level, a reasonable level, then I'm going to vote for a write-in. And I think if we all took that view, those of us who are Christians, we would see an amazing transformation take place in this country. And it would be almost impossible to stop. Everyone has the mandate, vote Christian. We want to return to our founding fathers' Christian roots. And this is really, I think, the answer to what we're doing. And it's people like this man right here that can make this possible. Right now, you have a mission, and the Great Commission primarily is bring people to the Word. But there's another aspect to the Great Commission, not only bring them to the Word, but bring them to political action. And, Barack Obama said, America is no longer a Christian nation. Do you remember that? We need to make him retract that statement. It's fantastic, man. We'll have more on him as we go through the week. I'm Dave Hodges. This is The Common Sense Show. Check us out at our TV show, thecommonsenseshow.tv, for the very best in investigative reporting. You guys will love it. We'll see you back here again next time. Thanks for joining us.